Button and I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't ready. Good morning, everybody. My name is Misha, and I'm here to talk to you about insulin resistance. Am I a doctor, a physician, a dietitian? No, I'm just a real person like you guys. And I got sick and got 100% better, understanding that insulin resistance was at the root of almost everything that I was suffering with. So now I'm here to share it with you guys so that hopefully you can start to find your pathway back to health. Because if you're anything like me, maybe you're suffering with a myriad of complications and the doctor's looking at this piece and that piece and the other piece and they can't figure out why you're sick. Or worse yet, they're telling you that it's all in your head, to just go home. And or better yet, if you're overweight, everything gets pushed off on the fact that you're overweight, and if you would just lose weight, you would feel better. So I'm here to help because of all of those things, and I know if I went through it, somebody else is going through it too. Now, of course, because I sit down here, the allergies are worse. There's a tree right outside that must be kicking it off. Anyway, I didn't put makeup on today except for lipstick because let's be real, I had some stain on my lips from last night and I just didn't want it to be uneven. But I didn't put makeup on today because I wanted to talk about skin and it's important. And so I just want you to see my skin, no makeup. And what's happened in 3 years is that at 60 years old, my skin looks better than it did at 50 years old because I addressed insulin resistance. So we're going to go into this right now. I'm doing a little different today. I'll save the insulin resistance talk till later. Right now, I'm just going to talk about how it links in, and then we'll talk about insulin resistance and why you probably have it and how you can overcome it so you can start to get all of these things, including your skin, under control. So the interesting thing with your skin is that I consider it an early warning detection system for insulin resistance. Like one of the first ways that you're visibly going to be able to tell that you may have an insulin resistance problem is by these factors in your skin. So let's go over it. The top couple are going to be skin tags, dark skin patches, and acne. So we'll go over those. I'll go over some of the other skin conditions in a minute. Skin tags. I've done some videos. I just did a video recently on stop having your skin tags cut off. And I get some people say, well, I never had my skin tags come back. A number of things. But for most people, I worked in an office that had a doctor who leaned more towards naturopathy. I can never say the word right. And then she also had an esthetician in her office. So I learned a lot during that time working, and she did hormones. So I learned a lot during that time. But what I know is that most people, those skin tags come back. What you're doing is you're just masking a symptom without really addressing it. Wouldn't it be wonderful to understand where the skin tags come from, why you have them in your underarms, your groin, on your neck, and how you can stop them from coming along, how you can have them go away and not have them cut off, and how you can get the rest of your health better while doing that. So, skin tags. With insulin resistance, we're going to go into that a little bit deeper in a minute. Some of your cells are super resistant to insulin and they're just saying, nope, I'm not having it anymore. So they're not getting that in. I can't do it this way. I have to go back. You guys, I have to go back. So insulin resistance really is just this dysregulation of insulin in our system. When we have too much insulin in the system, it's driven by having too much food that's converting to sugar too quickly. Well, what happens is the body says, oh, there's sugar in the system. We need insulin, a hormone that its primary job, because it has many, is to carry that energy to the cells of the body. But insulin also likes to hold on to things. It likes things to grow. It likes things to store things. It doesn't want to burn things up, and it's protecting the growth in your body. So insulin can be amazing for us if it's in the right amounts. But when it gets to be too much, we have a problem. With skin tags, what's happening is these skin cells called keratinocytes, which build up the structure of your skin, start to overproduce. When they're overproducing those skin cells, it has to go somewhere, and it starts popping out as little projections, like little mushrooms or little fingers of skin that are sticking out of the surface of your skin. If you see skin tags on, that's not age related. That's not, oh, I'm a grandma or a grandpa, because that's what I thought when I had skin tags all over. I thought, oh, my grandma had them, my mom has them. It just happens as you get older. That's part of, the breaking down of your skin. But what's really happening is those keratinocytes are seeing that excess insulin, that excess energy, and they're eating it up. And it's creating excessive growth of those skin cells, which then shows up as skin tags. So if you see those skin tags, understand that you're likely insulin resistant. You don't have to have them. I don't have a single skin tag on my body now. I had them all in my arms, in my groin even. It was a bit embarrassing, actually, but there's not one on my body now, and it went away within 3 months of me starting the protocol I'm gonna talk about. Dark skin patches, so you can see people. I've seen patches of dark skin, not just under people's arms, because those folds are rubbing. You don't normally see it in people's groin because you don't get to see that part of them, but it happens in the groin. But anywhere where the skin folds and rubs, so maybe along the bra line, along the neckline where your shirt's rubbing. I've seen it on ankles where people's shoes are rubbing. Those dark skin patches are not just, oh, I'm a certain ethnicity, or oh, I have bad hygiene, because bad hygiene is not the issue. What's happening there is now we talk about another skin cell which gives it its pigmentation called melanocytes. Similar thing happening. The body's producing too much melanocytes in response to too much of this energy delivery in the system. So now you have those dark skin patches. Good morning, Nelda. And you might have them on your elbows, on your knees, in those other places I talked about. Primarily in the same places you'll have skin tags. But my elbow had dark, almost black, and it was rough and scaly, and it was all the way around this elbow and all the way down to like here. Scrubbed all the time, put coconut oil, shea butter, all the stuff on it. It was just continually cleaning, like there was something wrong with me, that, my hygiene wasn't great, and my hygiene is great. So it was perplexing me. But when I started addressing my insulin resistance, those went away. Now, if I ever feel like, oh man, I've had an emotional month and I may be eating too much stuff, I look at my elbows. Are my elbows still nice and, similar color? I'm good. As soon as that stuff was to start to show up, and it never has, then I would understand that I'm falling back into insulin resistance. It's an early sign that there's too much going on in your body and you should address it. Then we get to acne. Acne makes those little glands in your skin overproduce. And so you're getting a buildup of skin under the hair follicles, under the skin pores, and it starts to make these little, especially cystic acne, and it starts to create these little acne pockets. Most people with acne are also shown to have a metabolic disorder. So wouldn't it be nice to know? And my daughter struggled with acne almost her entire life. We did all the stuff. We did the Proactive. I had her like washing her sheets almost daily, great skincare, and she couldn't get rid of her acne. The poor girl was just insulin resistant. As soon as we started addressing her insulin resistance, and I say girl, she's in her 30s, her skin is beautiful. It's glowing. She doesn't have the acne all over. She's not embarrassed by it. It's just been much better for her. Understand that this overproduction with skin, a lot of it is overproduction. So skin tags, acanthosis nigricans or dark skin patches, and acne are all in response to too much insulin. So there's too much of those things going on. When we look at things like psoriasis and eczema, an interesting thing to note, they're just kind of linking eczema to insulin resistance. Not a lot of studies yet on direct relations, right? But what we do know is that eczema is an inflammatory disease. When you have something that's creating more inflammation in your body, you're more likely to experience that eczema flares than if your body is not filled with inflammation. Insulin resistance creates a whole lot of inflammation in your body. Inflammation can cause you to be insulin resistant as well. So now People with psoriasis and eczema have to be even more careful about their diet because they're already in an inflammatory state, and that's already setting them up to be insulin resistant, which is going to make the problem worse. Psoriasis is very similar to that with eczema. But the interesting thing is, studies have shown that people with psoriasis are three times more likely to be insulin resistant than people without psoriasis. So there's a definite link, and science is just starting to dig in and be like, hey, there's this link. What's going on? How is this happening? Why is it happening? So we'll have answers for that eventually. Right now, what they understand is that there's a definite link between all those skin disorders and insulin resistance. But interestingly, even with dry skin, part of what happens is that the body is pulling moisture and it's thinning the skin because it's pulling water from every place in the body, but the skin starts to see it first. So you start to get dry, thin, papery skin. Then you add to that the reduction of vascularity. So now the skin's not getting um, the blood flow that it needs to be healthy. So now your skin is aging really rapidly with insulin resistance. So if you feel like you're wrinkling quicker than you should, if you feel like all of the skin is breaking down quicker than it should, and you have any of those other things, you might want to take a look at addressing insulin resistance and see what can happen. So look, I'm 60 years old. Um, I don't do. Let's preface with this. I don't do all of the facial stuff. I don't do injections. I don't do peels. I don't do all the stuff that is out there right now trying to keep your skin healthy. Instead, I just take care of myself from the inside out. Is my skin perfect? No, but it isn't much better than most women my age that I see. Yeah, and the only difference is not necessarily just genetics, any of that. The big difference is that I take care of my skin from the inside out by addressing insulin and making sure that there's not too much sugar and too much inflammation and too much of this destruction going on in my skin. Now, when I was severely insulin resistant, I had melasma patches on the side of my face that were dark and patchy, and I wouldn't go out in public without makeup on because I felt like I always say like a creature off of Star Trek, but I don't have those now. And I had dark skin patches around my neck. And I thought, oh, it has to do with how I'm in the sun. And this part under here is shaded and this part's not. No, that was acanthosis nigricans and overproduction of the melanocytes in my skin. Do I have some loose skin? Yeah, I'm 60. I've lost over 50 pounds. My skin is better than it has been ever. And I'm happy for that. Now, if you're suffering with any of those, I would love for you to understand that this could be what's happening with you, that it could just be an insulin resistance problem. Like I say with everything else, why not address the big elephant in the room, the insulin resistance, and see if your skin starts to get better? If the other health issues you may or may not be having start to get better, things like headaches, fibromyalgia, joint pain, bleeding teeth and gums, your eyesight failing, your hair falling out, all of those things in combination with those skin issues. Well, if your skin issue is the big thing and you address that, you might just notice that there are these other smaller things that are getting better, and you'll understand that you've gotten to control of your health and you're starting to get that taken back. Now, you have 11 of those elements above, you're a mess. User, we're going to talk about that. Let's just talk about that. Okay, so every morning I go over a little bit of some condition that's related to insulin resistance. It's way too much. Sometimes I get more in depth than others, but it's way too much to try and go over everything that insulin resistance is linked to in a 1 hour little talk. But look, this book, Why We Get Sick, is a plethora of information. If you really want to know more, get the book. I don't get paid for talking about it. I just think it's a great book for everybody to read. Dr. Ben Bickman is one of the top metabolic scientists in the world. You'll see him all over YouTube. He's on everybody's podcast. Everybody wants him. He works with Levels Health. He has a podcast called Insulin IQ, whatever. That's where a majority of my information comes from, along with searching the internet for good, reputable papers on what's happening with all this stuff or breaking new news on what's happening. So, if you have 11 of those symptoms, honey, I'm going to say that you're likely insulin resistant. And when I say likely, what I really want to say is you're damn well insulin resistant, but I really can't. I'm not supposed to say that, right? But I would venture to guess that you're very insulin resistant, and just by addressing the insulin resistance, you can get those under control. The interesting thing is that almost everything on that list, I was suffering with when I started this path. It was so bad for me in the beginning that I always used to say 10 medications because I didn't count the pain medications, but the pain medications, as I've gone along, I understand are very, very related to insulin resistance. So 13 medications that I'm no longer on. Sleep apnea is not an issue for me. I'm getting better sleep than I have in years, since my teenage years, probably. But all of those are linked to insulin resistance. So let's talk about insulin resistance. And then I do want to just really spend some time on the solution that I found. There are a lot of different solutions out there. This is the one I choose. And so I invite you to do whatever makes your heart happy. But I'm here to talk about the protocol that I found that actually helped me when all the other little suggestions were not helping. So, insulin resistance, I've mentioned multiple times. We're going to say it again. It should be called glucose dysregulation, right? So what's happening is we're having way too much glucose hit our system all at once. And that glucose has to be delivered as energy. If it stays in the bloodstream, it can cause a lot of damage throughout the bloodstream. So we got to get it out of the bloodstream and delivered to the cells as energy. And that's what our food is supposed to be. Also, our food is supposed to stay in our stomach for a while. It's not supposed to just go straight through and a half an hour later, you're hungry again. It's supposed to kind of, like we used to call it, stick to your bones. You're supposed to eat and you're supposed to stay a little bit satiated for a while, a few hours at least after you've eaten, before your body senses it needs energy again. But for today, what happens is we eat and then we're highly hungry right away again. And why is that happening? Because the food is passing through us too quickly. That's happening because things like enzymes and phytosterols, and most importantly, fiber, has been stripped from our diet, so it moves through really quickly. A couple of problems: it spikes your blood sugar really high. Now all of a sudden, your system is inundated with all this energy, and it's got to get it delivered, right? The second thing is, because everything is passing through too quickly, you're not getting the absorption of some of your other nutrients. And so some people can start to look malnourished. That part I'm not going to link so much to insulin resistance, just to the way our food is digesting the food that we have available today. So what we really need to do is watch our carbs and slow down how quickly they're delivering to the system. Doesn't mean that you have to be some Puritan and you have to go carnivore. You have to eat less than 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. 20 grams of carbohydrates is a decent size serving of spinach, by the way. Like, how are you supposed to do all this? Carnivore or keto. So I was keto the entire time. So I was a world champion powerlifter in my 50s. I was keto the entire time I was training. And probably the reason it didn't tip into diabetes during that time was keto and the amount that I worked out. But did it mean that I wasn't insulin resistant during that time? No. Um, and the premise is because I didn't understand some of the stuff. So carnivore works amazing for some people. Keto works amazing for some people. But the other thing that happens, new science is starting to talk about the fact that when we restrict carbohydrates so much, that what you're really doing is training your body to not be able to use sugar at all. And we don't want it that way either. What we want is, like, if you walk over to the switch on your wall, what you want is that, when you flip the switch up, the lights are on, and when you flip the switch down, the lights are off. It's kind of the way our metabolism is. We're either the flip the switch up, we're running on insulin. Flip the switch off, we're running on glucagon, and we need to be able to flex between the two. So, Dr. Camberry, I listen to Dr. Camberry a lot too. So I fast a lot, but the thing is that I tried a lot of these things beforehand and it really wasn't working. I really am an advocate of the fiber piece because I feel like that's the big thing that really changed for me. I did the medical medium. I did keto. I did ketosis to the point that I was only having about 20 grams of carbs a day. And yet my body was still struggling with knowing how to do that. It wasn't just the ketosis, it's the intermittent fasting part that helps. So, and Dr. Ken Berry, I was just listening to a podcast from him. He's actually changing his mind on some things that he was staunchly an advocate of before. And I've got to listen to his podcast and understand what those changes in his knowledge are. And I will certainly share that as soon as I have time to watch that podcast and listen to him and see what it is that he's talking about. So, the thing is, though, that a lot of people are in a place where what I like to say is this. If you if you are in if you're deep down in a hole and you're trying to get out and somebody puts a ladder down and they say, "Here's rung number 1. We're going to skip 14 rungs and I want you to get to rung number 15 and then you're going to be out of the hole." That's kind of how we approach our health, and I don't for me, I don't want that for people. I understand that's a way for people to fail. What I want is to give people a sustainable system that allows them to start where they're at, start making better choices, and work their way to that 15th rung where they're now solid and stable and not going to just fall right back down. So there was a comment up here. Do I wear a CGM? Yeah. I don't, but I've been toying with the fact that I wanna get one for a while. I've been really resistant to them for a long time, but the more I listen to a lot of these guys talk, like Insulin IQ with Dr. Ben Bickman and a few other doctors, Dr. Barry, Dr. Hyman, with Tom DeLauer, with Mindy Pels, all of these people, and I'm actually considering this month ordering a CGM and just tracking. So at least we know and I can talk more effectively about it. I don't want people to think that they have to go to the expense of a CGM. If you can do it, I think it's the best thing to do. Absolutely. So you can start to see because the foods that are going to spike your insulin really high may not spike my insulin really high. And the ones that I'm super sensitive to may not spike yours as high. And that part does play with genetics and the length of time you've had insulin resistance and all of these other things. So I think CGMs are amazingly powerful tool. I just don't think that everybody is at a place where they can afford $200 a month for one, plus all the other stuff they need to do. If you can, yes. And I'm probably going to get one myself this month. And then we'll start tracking what happens with me as I'm talking about this now 3 years into my journey, what's happening. Because I'm noticing what I do notice now, though, is that now that I've become more insulin sensitive, now that I don't eat all the same foods that I used to eat, when I do go back and get them, because we all have this, there's an emotional trigger for us with food, and we need to understand and validate that. There are some foods that just remind me of my daddy, and they're comforting, and my daddy was my hero. So sometimes emotionally, we're just like, I want something that makes me feel closer, and it can be food a lot of times. Where I'm going with this is now what I notice is some of those foods I notice make me really sick or don't taste well, or they just taste really super chemically. Um, and I'm more and more sensitive to when I get a hold of things that were causing inflammation and toxicity in my body. It's just that when I was super insulin resistant, and I think this is happening with many people, that it's really hard to tell because you're in a constant state of inflammation and toxicity that it doesn't matter what you eat, you're having reactions. So, yeah, long term, you'll start to see what works for you and what doesn't. And I've been dialing my diet in more and more every year since I've been on this journey. And so, like yesterday, let's talk about yesterday for me, an eating day. Just um, I'm going to talk about the protocol too because it really supports me. Could I do it without it? Probably. Would I do it as easily? No. Would I be as protected on the times when I'm having those emotional moments? No. Do I have to be perfect when I'm using the protocol? No. Do I want to be? Yes. All right. So, yesterday, this is what I ate. I had for breakfast, I did 3 eggs. I scrambled them with some no nitrate sausages that I cut up. I put some cheese in those, and then I threw that all in a bowl and topped it off with some organic sauerkraut for prebiotics and for some of that gut health goodness. Then I put a little bit of mustard on top. That was my breakfast. Big bowl of eggs, sausage, sauerkraut. Yummy. Some people are like, "Oh my god, what is she talking about?" But that's the cool thing is I eat what I like. You eat what you like, what fits for your life. Now, from that break fast, which I had at about noon, I was full for a long time. I think I had my dinner around 5 because I'm trying to shift into finishing my food earlier in the day. And so for dinner, I had 2 chicken breasts, um, marinated in Italian seasonings and covered with like a panko and Parmesan crust, and they were baked. And then on the side, I had some white navy beans. White navy beans are really good to help with a couple of things. An enzyme that breaks down sugar helps slow that enzyme down so sugar's not breaking down as quickly. But navy beans are also very anti inflammatory. So I like to incorporate them a couple of times a week. That was my day yesterday. Now, to some people, that might sound boring, bland, whatever, but it was actually it tasted really good, and once you get used to not having all the chemical crap in your food, and you start to really taste what food is supposed to taste like, you start to get it, right? You, but what I want you to notice is both of those meals were high in protein. There was some fats. I probably need to add some avocado or some kind of fat. I have a little bit of that chicken left over. I'll have that today, but that's how I eat. Now, so if I'm eating 2 chicken breasts, 3 eggs, and sausage in those meals, is it really about calorie restriction? Maybe a little bit because I may not be getting in as many calories from all the crap foods, but is it just the negative or the, I'm going to say the word crap food that's causing the problem, or was it the calories? And what they're finding is that people who focus on protein and fats can actually take in more calories but have less of this negative effect because they're not proteins and fats are not spiking your insulin like carbohydrates do. Another misnomer is that people think that carbohydrates are just like breads, starches, potatoes, rice. Is that what you guys feel like? Because when we look at macros, you have proteins, you have fats, and you have carbohydrates. That means if it's not a protein and it's not a fat, it is a carbohydrate. So that means fruits, vegetables are all carbohydrates. It just depends on the glycemic index of the food, and that glycemic index, a lot of what drives whether it's high glycemic, whether it's going to spike your insulin and your blood sugar's high, or whether it's going to do it low, happens to be all about the fiber in those foods. The fiber is slowing them down from delivering the sugar too quickly. And you know what, Born? Eggs are like sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut. I love fermented foods. They're actually, I think they're really good for you, right? Your body tells you like immediately. You guys, it's my body is so sensitive now. I've had a number of issues throughout my life. I have no gallbladder now because we didn't catch insulin resistance early enough. But I also have a tendency towards IBS. We always just blame that on my native gut, right? Like, so I'm native genetically. Genetically, for me, and this is where genetics comes in, I'm not as used to some of the foods and whatnot that y'all have eaten for centuries. It just hasn't been introduced to my genetic line as long ago. So there hasn't been the time for my genetics to get used to it. So I do call it native gut because we get really acidic guts and we get IBS when we were introduced to some foods. One of those foods happens to be sugar. I notice now, I'm like, oh my gosh, even like I bought some chocolates that were supposed to be keto chocolates dark, really high quality chocolate with nuts and berries and stuff in it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep those around. If I feel like I need a sweet treat, I'll have those. But even that really kicks up my gastritis and gives me pain, and I start having IBS symptoms right away. So you'll start to see absolutely what foods are toxic for you as you start to get your system cleaned up. And then you'll be like, oh, even without a CGM, oh, that's not a food I should have. My food choices have been narrowing down. Part of the reason I eat like I do is I'm now understanding all the extra stuff that used to go into my food was what was making me sick. I love eggs Benedict. So I was the other day like, how am I going to do eggs Benedict? I don't really have a lot of bread in my house unless it's on the weekend when my grandson is here and we have some croissants for his ham and cheese sandwiches. The rest of the week, I really don't have bread. So English muffins and all that stuff is just not in my house. But I love eggs Benedict. So I'm like, well, I have these great, I mean, they're just chicken patties. They're breaded for sure. So a little bit of carbohydrates. But I just cooked one of those till it was nice and crispy and then did the eggs Benedict with the hollandaise sauce on top of that. Amazing meal. Super high in protein without all the negatives, and I didn't get sick. So the other thing is seed oils. I talk a lot about seed oils. It has nothing to do with the protocol, but everything to do with insulin resistance. There's a big back and forth. There's a guy on here. I'm not going to mention his name. Because I'm not going to give him that much power. But he likes to try and dispel what everybody on the internet says. And he does all this metadata bullshit, which I think that it's great. But I think you can pick and choose your metadata to make it work where you want it to. Anyway, he tries to say seed oils are not bad for you. And yet when I listen to doctors like Bickman and Fung, even Hyman, some of these other guys, they talk about the linoleic acids that are produced with seed oils, and those linoleic acids. By the way, I used to think gluten was bad. Gluten, if you have a gluten sensitivity, you need to understand this because, again, and I'll get to the protocol in a second. Gluten can stick around in your gut for about 6 weeks after even one bite. If you're gluten sensitive and you have something that has gluten in it, that little burr in your system is going to be there for about 6 weeks. I used to think that was horrible. Like I went gluten-free for a long time to try and heal my issues. Worked a little bit, but the crazy thing is even like the chewing gum you have has some gluten in it. That then sticks in your system for 6 weeks. Well, what's worse than that? Linoleic acids. One bite of linoleic acid, so those seed oils that we're talking about, and I'm admonishing myself a lot because I wasn't as careful. Now I understand those seed oils, the linoleic acids, the inflammatory component from it, can stay in your system for 600 days. That's almost 2 years. So you go out to a fast food restaurant or someplace and you're highly sensitive to these seed oils and they give you inflammation and IBS. Now you've ingested something that you're going to carry around for up to 600 days after. I do not have any oils in my house other than I have coconut oil, and I have jars of coconut oil all throughout the house. I use it for my health, for my skin. I use it for my nasal passages to keep them clear. I use it for oral pulling to keep bacteria out of my teeth and gums. I use it in my cooking. Coconut oil to me is amazing. But coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and butter are the 3 fats in my house. You will not come in my house and find any kind of vegetable seed or like canola oil anywhere in my house. Grapeseed is very similar. I just stay away from them. Okay. I just stay away from that. I know there's a lot of people who talk about the benefits of grapeseed oil. And maybe I should do a video on that specifically because grapeseed oil over some of the others does have some benefits, but it does have some of these negatives. What I want is all the benefits without the negatives. So I'm going to stick with the oils that I mentioned. So avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, animal fats, rendered animal fats, not Crisco oil in a can. That's That's an industrial oil that they're selling to you as food, unfortunately. Olive oil, the one thing with olive oil and avocado oil that I want everyone to understand is it can go rancid really quickly. And olive oil is one of the biggest, okay, buckle up your seats and be mad if you want, understand if you want, whatever. But olive oil to me is one of the major scams out there. So if you're talking about extra virgin olive oil and you look at the label and it's good cold pressed olive oil, we're golden. It should be in a dark bottle because if it's in a light bottle, it's going to go rancid. If you're buying olive oil in a plastic or light bottle and the color of the olive oil is very light, that means read your label because it's probably primarily um, seed oil with some olive oil in it so they can market it as olive oil, but you're still getting in those negative seed oils that they talk about with the rest of them. The real is expensive. Okay, let's talk about that. I used to have those thoughts too. And it's amazing to me. I used to have a fridge full of food that wasn't expensive, but I also had 13 medications that I was taking. I also had a cane and a walker, and I couldn't do my job anymore, and I couldn't walk upstairs. And I was at the doctor's office twice a month. And it all came back to the food that was going into my face. Okay. What's more expensive for me to spend $7 to $10, $12 to $14 on a bottle of good olive oil? I don't use oil for cooking a lot anyway, or all of the other stuff I just talked about. Yeah, I could spend a couple of bucks on a cheap oil. Can we talk about those oils too? Rockefeller started developing some of those oils that we're ingesting as food now to use up the waste product of some of the foods they were processing. They drench them in hexane, a highly toxic solvent, um, in the processing to get what they can out of it. It was originally developed as a machine oil. That's why they have such a high flash point. That's why they don't break down so easily at high heats and why restaurants can cook in the same oil over and over and over again. It's technically, at the bottom line, it's a machine oil that we're cooking our food in and then ingesting and then wondering why, oh my gosh, I have some urgency. I have some IBS. I have ulcers. I have all this stuff going on. I have joints that are inflamed and my memory's going in. What? You're putting straight toxin into your system and you wonder why you're sick. Now, we don't know those things because people don't tell us. That's why I'm here. Okay. So if we're talking about the expense of something, yeah, I just use butter for most of my cooking. Most of my cooking gets done in butter. Every once in a while, I use olive oil, or for those liquidy oils, I'll use olive oil in my cooking. I don't eat a lot of baked goods. I don't eat a lot of that stuff. Olive oil, a good expensive bottle of olive oil, um, will last me the couple of months that it's good. And half the time I'm actually having to throw it away because it's now older than it should be for it to be healthy for me and I haven't used it all. So I just buy a smaller bottle, but I buy a good quality olive oil and know that if I cook at home, meat, anything in olive oil, I'm not going to be having a half an hour later, this urgency that's pretty devastating and not very pretty to talk about. So yeah, the robber barons who made millions selling us poison as food can rot in hell. Right? Right? I feel the same way. It's like, oh, some of what they've done to us in their need to make money has been crazy. Crazy. And we just don't understand it. And when people like me and you start to try and stand up and talk about it, we get labeled as conspiracy theorists or that nut job who talks about the crazy stuff. And yet you're over there getting sicker and wondering why you're running to the doctor and why they're giving you fistfuls of pills that aren't working. When if we just understood some of this stuff, we could understand that our health doesn't have to be like it has been for most of us. So yeah, Tina, I only have 2 meals on most days. Now I'm going to be super honest. So after the meal, I was like, I kind of do because I have a big sweet tooth. I'm ADHD, but I have some high protein yogurt little bars covered in dark chocolate. They're little ones. I had 2 of those after I ate. Not because I was hungry, but more for the mental something sweet, not because I needed it, but I try to just make the sweet part a healthier choice for me. Even like salt and crunchy foods, I've transitioned to having. This is funny because it was one of my dad's favorite foods, chicharrones, fried pork rinds. So you just have to be careful that they're not fried in all the oils I just talked about. But those pork rinds are primarily fat and they don't spike your insulin either. Good, safe choice as long as they're processed properly. Um, you have battles with cyclic vomiting syndrome because of junk food. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not very familiar with cyclic vomiting syndrome, so I want to look that one up. But you guys, at the bottom of all of this, with all of this going on, what I found that helped me and what I want to share with you is this a simple system. You see me drinking, this is actually a tea in here. I have the tea every morning. My hot water is no longer hot. Normally I mix it hot, and maybe I'll just mix it anyway. I normally have 2 teas a day anyway. The tea is a real food product. Both of these are real food products, but there's enough science behind them. So it's just a packet. This one is my lemon ginger. I just tear the top off, pour it in, and I don't have a spoon, so I'm just going to stir it with this little thing. But that's it. I don't have to go steep tea. I don't have to do any of that. I just put this in. If I'm on an airplane, cold or hot water, I can drink my tea for energy, for mental clarity, for all the nutrients that it's giving me, antioxidants, anti-cancer properties, neuroprotective gene expression in the brain, meaning your brain is going to function better. Some of those receptors are going to get better. It has a number of components in it, like chlorogenic acids, theobromine, and mate saponins, that really support your metabolic health as well as your mental health. This tea has some studies that show that people, when drinking it for 30 days, 1 cup a day for 30 days, had a 70% increase in their wellness score, meaning they felt happier. They felt they had more mental clarity. This also can increase your glucagon like peptide action by over 70% by having just 2 cups a day. So, this tea does all of the good work of some of those injections that people are doing without all the negative side effects. I drink this in the morning during my fasting state, shuts down my hunger, gives me that mental energy and clarity, gives me physical energy without any crashes, and it just helps me feel full before my next meal. It has that similar action of the glucagon like peptides, but from naturally stimulating them. So my brain is satiated, my gut is satiated, I'm not hungry. My meal last night was around 5 o'clock, right? So we're now 16 hours into a fast. I'm not hungry. I probably won't eat for 2 more hours. Again, in my brain, I've had to shift. This is not about calorie restriction. It's about allowing me to be more metabolically flexible. When I'm 16 hours fasted, my insulin levels are down, which means my ketones are up, my HGH is up. Starting to have some autophagy, cellular turnover. That's the other part of my skin looking better now than it did a couple of years ago. Um, and then when I do eat, I'm just going to have one of these before I eat. This is a pre-meal drink that contains 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers, some phytosterols or just plant substances that are great for heart health and for fat digestion to help regulate it. And then it has a panel of vitamins and minerals. So now this has a really high amount of many vitamins and minerals in it. The tea is called the drink of the gods by the locals who harvest it, and they rely on this heavily. It's harvested in Argentina, and the Argentinians fly in thousands of pounds of this for their soccer team when they're competing, because not only does it do all the stuff I talk about, it increases physical performance by 10 to 15%. All science backed, not just some company saying, oh, hey, we have this stuff. No, there's scientific studies behind everything that I'm saying with this. So if you want it, you're just going to go to the link in my profile up there and send me a message and I'll get you all the information. The tea is available. I'll send you the link. The tea is available through just through me. If you get it through me, you're going to get a 90-day money-back guarantee. You get it directly from the company. I'm authorized from the company to represent these. And you get triple testing guarantee, and you get a low price guarantee. You're not going to find it cheaper on Amazon, eBay, Walmart. I was just speaking with someone yesterday who spent almost as much for one box of the tea as my clients spend for the entire system of 90 packets in a month. So don't do that to yourself. Just use my link. But the tea in the morning and the pre-meal drink before I eat anything is all I did. Now, if we were to sit down and look at the calories in the food I ate yesterday, we're close to 1,800 to 2,000 calories by the time you attribute all the fats that were in there and the proteins that were in there. So does that mean that I'm getting my health back because I severely restricted my calories? No, no. It just means that I've allowed my body to be able to switch between burning sugar for fuel, and burning fat for fuel. And that really is the key. It's not about calorie restriction. It's about allowing you to be flexible. Now, some days I do eat 3 meals, but I try to keep them in an 8-hour window. Yesterday, my 2 meals were high enough in protein that I didn't feel the need to have a third meal. And some days it's really difficult for me to even think about having that third meal because I'm just not hungry for it. If I feel like I need a third meal and I'm not really super hungry, but maybe I need the extra protein, I'll have a protein shake or something. Some days I just have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I just keep it in an 8-hour window and don't do snacking outside of that. So 2 meals a day is actually absolutely perfect for most of us. We really don't need 3 meals. And there's some interesting facts. This just came up for me. When I talk about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, ideal body weight is where you should be for your protein intake for the day. Um, that can be hard to do in 2 meals for some people. Most of my meals I aim to have about 50 grams of protein every meal I eat. And that is partially stemmed from some old news that says you couldn't metabolize more than about 40 to 50 grams of protein at a time. That still is true, but what they're now seeing is that protein doesn't just automatically go away. It kind of hangs out and it allows you to utilize it in bits as time goes on. Now, way too much protein is just going to convert into fat or force your kidneys to process it and pee it out. So that's not good. But they're saying you can eat up to about 100 grams of protein in a meal. Immediately, the body's only going to use the 40 to 50 grams, but the other 40 to 50 grams are going to start to be used over time after that first 40 to 50 are utilized. So getting in enough protein in each meal to me is more important than counting any calorie, than doing any of that. It keeps me feeling full. It keeps me craving less sugar. When I eat this way, I don't have all the cravings for candy and cookies and all the stuff. Do I have them every once in a while? Yes. You make your popcorn and olive oil too. I used to eat a lot of popcorn. There's some studies out, and I have not dove into the studies to see what they're talking about, but they're starting to say now that popcorn isn't as healthy for you. Gosh, you guys, it seems like no matter what we find, they're saying it's unhealthy. So I don't talk about it. It just triggered me that I got to go back and watch that and see what they're talking about and go look up the studies that they're referring to see if there's really any um, validity to that. Because for a crunchy, salty snack, I know that it's likely going to spike my insulin. It's a grain. It can be inflammatory. It can be all the stuff. But I do like popcorn every once in a while. The issue is that most of the popcorn, especially the bagged ones, unless you're making your own like you did, are drenched in those seed oils, right? Here we go again. So the food industry makes it really tough. This makes it really easy. Do I have to be perfect? No. Do I want to be? Yes. But in the meantime, I have a tea in the morning. I have a pre-meal drink before I eat anything. This reversed my diabetes, reversed my joint issues, reversed my eyesight. I still wear glasses. These are a 1.75. And 3 years ago, I was wearing a 3 diopter reader. How, at 60 years old, did I cut my eyesight damage in half back to what I was wearing? I started wearing this at like 45. So my eyes are about where they were at 45 instead of I thought I was going to go blind 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's all about the insulin and the vascularity and all these things that I talk about this every day. And all I didn't do any crazy stuff. I do more now because I'm trying to heal up the rest of the stuff. But all I do, at the bottom line, if I don't do anything during in a day, I will make sure that I do this. And look at this. I have a small purse, like the over the shoulder purse. I don't like carrying big purses anymore. But this fits nicely in the side pocket of that, and I can take it with me anywhere. I can keep a bottle in my car, or I can just purchase a bottle of water someplace, mix it in, shake it up. I'm good. I keep stainless steel mugs everywhere. Just put water in it, mix it up. I'm good. It's that easy. And that's what reversed my diabetes after and my blood pressure after doctors were not able to do it with multiple medications. That's why I do this. No medications, just this. That's my life. And I want that for everyone else too, to have the kind of health I have without those damaging side effects. And again, you just message me and I get you the information. Message me and we can have a chat. If you don't want to chat, that's cool. I just get you the message, the information. If you want to chat and be like, and I've got to call some people back today, but like my daughter, my son, my whatever I'm suffering with, and we can talk about how it relates. I can't diagnose you. I can't do any of that, but I can help you understand how insulin resistance does or does not relate to what you're talking about. If what you're bringing to me doesn't sound like anything that's going to be insulin resistant related, I'm going to say that. But if it does, my answer is always this. You have a 90-day money back guarantee. You have two real food products that you do at 3 points during the day with a simple practice I help coach you through. And you get to eat the foods you love, and you get to get your health back and hopefully get off of medications like thousands of other people have done. Thyroid medications, medications for kidney problems, medications for hypertension, medications for atherosclerosis and hardened arteries. All of this stuff links to insulin resistance, and the medications aren't fixing it; they're masking it. Okay, and in oftentimes they start creating other problems. One of my favorite stories, and some of you may have heard this before, and some of you may not. When I worked in medical, I was actually in an allergy clinic, and a woman came in and I was doing her intake and did all her vitals and started doing her questionnaire, and she started crying when I got to the part about medications. And seriously, quite literally, she hands me two paper bags full of medications, and said, I don't even know anymore. I can't keep track of it all. I don't even know if I take them all right anymore. I don't know, but this is what they have me on. It took me a half an hour just constantly putting in stuff to an EMR that auto populates, and I still didn't get all of her medications in. But what I noticed was, as I was putting her medications in the system from the intake with her, I understood that she had one simple problem. She was given medication A for that, and almost every other medication in her bag stemmed from complications from this medication that led to this medication. This medication had complications and led to this medication. This medication had complications and led to, and it was just this whole spiral of medications, all stemming from one medication that was given for one disorder. And all of a sudden, she has two bags full of medications. Who's getting better from that? Was she? No, she was still at the doctor's office crying because her health was failing. She sure had two bags full of medications to try and manage it all. Um, no, you don't have to test your blood every day. Hunger is such a loud hormone. What do you do to stop the hunger urges? Perfect. Let's talk about that a little bit. What's the tea? Oh, the link for the tea. Let me get it to you over here. And then let me get the link over on Facebook so you guys can go find that. You just got to message me. And um, if you want to do the system, let me know you want the system. If you want the tea, we have a booster pack of the tea, so you can just do 2 tea a day. And that is what I do. I have 2 of these teas every day. Because look, if I'm not having soda, if I'm not having the other stuff, I'm having something that's giving my body health and it tastes great. So we'll talk about that. Just message me and I'll get you the information that you need. Um, a loud hormone. Yeah. Leptin and ghrelin, right? Hunger and satiety. How do you shut them off? Well, if you have ADHD or any neurodivergence, you know that that's super hard because food links into dopamine and da da da. But bottom line, let's talk about a couple of things. Insulin resistance messes, I almost used a really bad word, messes with your leptin and ghrelin hormones. So it doesn't, insulin triggers this thing where you're never feeling quite full and you're always feeling hungry. Insulin dysregulates those two hormones. If you get your insulin under control, those two, leptin and ghrelin, start to get under control as well. There's also interplay with thyroid, estrogens, and cortisol, where insulin messes with proper levels of those hormones. So high levels of cortisol can trigger high levels of insulin, but high levels of insulin also most definitely trigger high levels of cortisol. When your cortisol is high and your body's like pumping your heart all the time and is sensing, oh my gosh, I need energy because my heart's racing, you're going to need more energy. But some of the other really more minute, interesting things are in your brain. When you have insulin resistance, your brain is not getting nutrients. Your brain needs glucose. Your brain needs glucose. Now, for those on a carnivore diet, they can derive some glucose from the meat that they're eating, and that's partly how they're doing so well, right? They're still getting glucose to the brain. The brain needs both glucose and cholesterol. So when we're doing these super low cholesterol diets and we're doing all this stuff, we're not doing the brain any good. Alzheimer's is derived from insulin resistance. But if we have insulin resistance throughout the body and some cells are saying, nope, insulin, I'm not going to let you in anymore, and the receptors are just kind of disappearing from inflammation in the cells, whatever, now insulin can't deliver the energy to that cell. That's what's happening in the brain. So now you start to feel like, I need energy. I have brain fog. I have migraines. I have fatigue. I'm having anxiety. My brain is starving. So I'm hungry. I need to get energy to my brain. You actually get hunger cues from your brain when your brain is not getting the nutrients it needs because it's saying, I need fed. So if you can start to open up those pathways and allow the brain to get the nutrients and the glucose that it needs in the time and in the amounts it needs, those hunger cues can start to shut down. Hunger cues from dysregulated leptin and ghrelin, because of interference with insulin resistance, can calm down. And now you start to have more normal hunger cues. 3 years ago, I was hungry all the time. Couldn't explain it. I would actually get chills when I ate. I would get fatigued when I ate, and I'm like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Not one physician, even though I directly asked them that, not one physical trainer, not one nutritionist, not one mentioned the glucose dysregulation and the ups and downs that were going on with glucose in my system because of insulin resistance. Once I started understanding that and getting this all leveled out, I don't have that. I don't get chills after I eat. I don't get fatigued after I eat. That's not a normal state of being, you guys. It's just not. If that's you, we need to start looking at your insulin levels because you're having a dysregulation problem. And the simplest thing in the world is to understand how to address it. So, to the person who asked me, I only ate 2 meals yesterday. Yeah. But did you hear me? I had 2 chicken breasts and I don't know, instead of a quarter cup, I had about a cup of white navy beans. It was hard. It was hard for me to eat that much food, but I was focused on proteins, fats, and fiber. Okay. The beans were thrown in because they're anti-inflammatory, because they help slow down this enzyme called amylase that breaks down sugars. It builds up in women's bodies, yada yada. I can go over all that sometime, other time. But yeah, and then 3 eggs, sausages, cheese, sauerkraut for breakfast. Again, it was hard to finish that meal. I stayed full. I didn't have cravings for cookies and cakes and stuff because I focused on proteins and fats and gave my body the proper amount of fiber. Now, why the fiber? This seven different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble, gets into your gut, gels up, makes you feel full before you even eat. As the food goes in, it starts to slow down the delivery of that so it's not hitting your bloodstream so quickly. So you're not having these high glucose spikes and lows but it's more time released and delivered in a more normal manner. So if the insulin or if the glucose doesn't spike high, the insulin doesn't have to spike high, which means the insulin can come down quicker and more normally. So yeah, it's actually so simple. We don't need to be eating 6 times a day. We shouldn't be eating 6 times a day. Our bodies weren't built for it, and it's making us sick. So it makes me sad. I don't go in and say anything because everybody has the right to have their space. I want to with every ounce of my body. When I see these influencers, because there's one, and she's a lovely lady, and I know she thinks she's doing the best thing she can for her clients, but she's telling them to eat every 2 hours and to ditch the fats and to have a piece of bread instead of that cup of avocado. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much I find wrong with all of that. And if I put those statements in front of my favorite metabolic scientist and said, "What do you think about this?" he would, it would be like his words coming out of my mouth because I listen to him so much. All right. So just if you get this insulin under control, your hunger cravings start to go away. Now, for most people, it's hard in the beginning. This helps it. This helps it. You guys, I use this also with that acidic stomach I have. If I'm having a day where I'm anxious because life happens and my I feel like the acids are kicking up and maybe I'm starting to have some acid reflux, I just drink this. I don't do Tums, I don't do any of that anymore. This, it's giving my gut health, but it's also soothing and coating my gut so I don't have those breakthrough. That's I don't know if anybody else does that, but I do that with this because I know that I'm giving my body things it needs. So that's that. It is time for me to go. I will be back Monday. If there's anything you guys want to talk to me about, if you don't want to say it here, use the link, message me, let me know what you want me to talk about. It has been, I think I just talked about blood pressure recently. I talked about PCOS recently. I haven't talked about kidneys in a while. Whatever you guys want me to talk about is what I want to bring in here and talk to you guys about. But understand that this simple system, you guys, look, it's $5 a day. And people will be like, oh, it's so expensive. And I think about it and I'm like, you know what? I get it. Honestly, I do. Because when I was insulin resistant and I was going to the doctor and I was spending all my time and money on getting to doctor's visits and paying for medications and running to this test and that test, I was so overwhelmed. And I thought, an additional $5 a day, what am I going to do? But within a month, I threw away all of my medications, including I still have the prescription for the pain medications. I hold on to them like a security blanket because I was in so much pain that my brain still hasn't shifted to the fact that I don't need them. I keep them around. I paid for them, but I don't use those pain medications anymore. That's why I still have a prescription bottle 3 years later that I just don't need. So, yeah, muscle loss. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I'm more than happy to go into that. Part of what's happening with the muscle loss, I'll just leave you with this very simple thing. If your cells are not taking in energy, you're not able to have growth in that cell. It is a form of yerba mate TB. Yeah, it's a highly concentrated and purified form of yerba mate tea. You can't find it anywhere else on the planet. You can't look, it has 375 times the chlorogenic acids as any regular yerba mate tea. So I break it down and say, okay, let's just go to a fraction of that. If I had to steep 30 bags of tea, 30 bags, which doesn't even get me close to the amounts I'm talking about. But say I just broke it down and said 30 bags of tea. That would cost me more than this. It would take more time, and then I'm getting a load of pesticides and toxins. So yeah, this is yerba mate tea. It is amazing, but it's specially formulated, highly concentrated, extremely pure, and extremely accessible. That's why we love it. Neuropathy. You know what? That's a great one. I haven't done neuropathy in a while. You want to do neuropathy on Monday? Let's do that. Um, okay, guys, I'm going to head out. I have somebody messaging me that I need to hop on the phone with. We'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend. If you want to know more, look, use that link. If you're ready to purchase, I would love to coach you. If you just have questions, I'm not going to push, but I'm going to answer your questions. Just utilize me, whether you're a client currently or whether you're just thinking about it. Just ask. Now, look, for the coaching and for all the information that I give you, There is no upcharge for that. That just comes when you purchase from me. Okay. But if you want the coaching from me, then please don't go purchase from someone else because then I'll ask you to go to them for coaching. All right. So I will see you guys Monday. I would love to see your name on my list, and I would love to be helping you and having those conversations with you as you start to get better too. So we'll see you Monday. If I have time this weekend, I will do something. Um, but we'll definitely do neuropathy on Monday. Okay. Have a great day. Talk about your how group support for getting off of meds and chronic illnesses is key. You know what? I don't normally get into those things, but what I will tell you is support in anything is key. Having somebody to help hold you accountable. Like some people just have this strong will and they're like, I made up my mind. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go do that. Other people are like, this is really simple and I want to do it, but they forget and they have issues and they need the support of somebody. Like I have family members with my ADHD. There's times where I sit down to eat 3 years in and I still forget to do this once in a while. And it's guys like my little grandson who'll be like, Nana, did you have your orange drink? You need that, remember? And then I take it. But having support, even with what you're struggling with, if you're not understanding what you're going, is important. And I do have a group called Beating Insulin Resistance on Facebook, but I would love to have more of a group chat. If you guys are up for that for my clients, if you guys want to join in like on a WhatsApp chat where you guys can ask questions and get answers and just get support, I'm totally open to doing something like that for everyone. Okay, you guys decide, let me know. Y'all got my number. By the way, when you use the link, it is my real number. You'll get a video from me saying, hey, and I will be talking directly to you, not some pre-canned message. And then I'll give you all the information because you do get coaching and support from me. Kara, okay. I will get to work on that this weekend on creating a group chat and inviting everyone to it. The link is, so if you go to, let's take a look. If you go to my profile, I have so many windows open, you guys. It's insane what I do to myself in a day. I've got to find the tab with here. Okay, so if you go to my profile, I already dropped it in Facebook and YouTube. So over there, you guys, I will talk to you Monday. I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to show everybody over on TikTok how to find the information. We'll see you guys Monday. Thanks for joining, Lisa. I hope to see you on